Hi there, welcome to this home practice seed on touch and how different kinds of touch can support your dance practice. My name's Tom, I'm a white male standing dancer with a bushy beard. So I'm just going to say a few words about the subject of touch before we get going into the practical. Touch for me is a really important part of my dance practice. It's often how I learn about things like the ground or my own body or perhaps other bodies. We can think about touch as a practice which by nature involves or creates movement. Engaging in an activity such as touch can also be a powerful creative tool. Often in performance practice, when I watch someone engaged in an activity where the activity is the dance, it can be really beautiful to watch. And as we explore different kinds of touch in this session, I encourage you to just be involved in the practice of touch. So that means you don't have to show or perform touch, just be engaged with it. So as I start to introduce different kinds of touch or new practices, just feel free to join in as soon as you're ready, and I'll keep speaking and practicing with you. The first touch I want to talk about is what I call light touch. So I'm going to use my fingertips on my forearm, and if you want to choose two different surfaces of your body, that's fine, go ahead. So this kind of touch is very light. My fingertips are very lightly in contact, and my fingertips can also slip and slide very easily. And if I was to turn my eyes away or to close my eyes and continue to use this light touch, for me, there's an increase in sensation. I'm more aware of the touch or the sensation in my fingertips. So if your eyes are closed, you can gently open them now. This light touch, I would To help give you another idea is perhaps if you go into a dark room and you're reaching around on the wall to try and find the light switch, but you're not sure where it is. It's that kind of sensitive, investigating touch that we're looking at. I'm going to transfer to start to work with an object, and I'm going to work with my stool. Because it's really easy to access. So you might like to find an object in your room. It could be another kind of chair, or perhaps a table, or a piece of furniture that's not too many sharp corners or anything like that. So I'm going to move down to my stool, and I'm either going to look away or I'm going to close my eyes and begin to use this light touch to investigate this object. Notice how the fingers or whatever you're using to touch really moves lightly, slipping. And in my touch, I start to pick up information about the surface. Perhaps you start to build up a picture of the form, the shapes and sizes, and perhaps you learn something new about this object, even if you might know it quite well. And already here you might be aware that as you touch your object, the object is also touching you back. So you're touched by the object. There's two things happening at the same time. And if you're perhaps touching your own body, perhaps that's 3 or 4 or more things happening at the same time. So it's quite a rich experience, the experience of touching and being touched. So I'll give you just a few more moments to explore the detail of your object with this light touch that investigates and finds out. And if your eyes are closed, you can gently open them and set your object aside. And we'll take this into a short score. So I'm going to find a space and a comfortable working position where I feel ready to move. And I'm going to continue to explore this light touch, but to make it perhaps a little more challenging or a bit more interesting, I'm not going to use the habitual surfaces that I touch with. So I'm going to try not to use my hands, and I'm going to start to investigate my own body with different surfaces, using this light touch to explore. So when you're ready, you can either turn your eyes away or close your eyes and begin to explore. And the real focus of this score is finding out, getting lots of information about the different surfaces of your body. That could be by touching or being touched, exploring this light touch, investigating with all the different surfaces of your body. Feel free to change your position or change your level so that it makes it easier to reach. And remember that skin covers your whole body. And I encourage you to really focus on the feeling of touching and being touched, and letting any movement that is taking place, let it just happen. It's like a byproduct. It just happens anyway. Through this investigation of light touch, moving is happening. When you're ready, you can find an ending for your investigation. Or if you'd like to continue for a while, you can press pause here and then just join back in when you're ready. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to transition onto the floor, or perhaps a sofa or bed if that's more accessible. Just make sure you have, it's a clear surface you're working on. So the next kind of touch I want to talk about is what I call soft grip. So again, I'm going to bring my fingers to my forearm, and again, you might find a version that works for you. I'm going to lightly touch my fingers as I did for the light touch, and then sink my fingers a little bit deeper so that when I move my hand, the skin of my forearm also moves. So I'm not sliding around like the light touch. I sink a little bit deeper, and there's a very soft grip that's happening. So I'm not really gripping onto my arm with my strength of my hand, I'm just letting the natural soft grip of my skin be working here. Great. So if you have a notebook to hand, you might also have a go at if you were to open a page, and then the soft grip really easily helps you turn a page. Or perhaps if you have a headache, or you've perhaps had too much ice cream and you've got a brain freeze, you might put your fingers on your temples and just gently circle your fingers. And here your fingers aren't slipping, they're just sinking in a little bit to move the skin around the temple. So we're going to use this kind of touch, this soft grip, onto the floor. And I think it's also important to say, perhaps for the wheelchair dancers, this might be also something that you use when you're turning or changing direction, often in quite subtle ways, with your hands on the wheels. So working on your surface, whether that's the floor or the sofa or the bed, I'm going to use this soft touch, making contact with, for example, your hands or your feet or another part of your body. And I'm going to find this purchase. I really like that word, purchase. It's this soft grip that allows me to push or pull. And notice that the skin might be stable on the surface, but the contents of the body can move a little bit. The bones or the muscles or the flesh can move even when the skin is stable and softly gripping the floor, as if my skin was a bag and all of the contents of my body, the bones and all the muscles, could move and be quite mobile compared to this stable part of my body, the skin on the floor. So I can start to lean, push and pull in different directions, changing places to explore this soft grip. And depending on your surface, for example, if you're working on a surface like this, sliding may be possible. But if you're working, for example, on a carpet, that might be a little bit more challenging. So you can also explore the stability of the contact with the skin, and then the mobility of the contents of the body, the skeleton or the muscles inside the body. So just exploring this kind of touch where a surface is stable and then other places in the body can be mobile as we shift and explore. Your movement may be quite subtle. There's definitely for me, there's a pleasure in exploring the really subtle, small movements where you might decide that you want to explore something a lot bigger. And also, of course, that depends on the surface that you're working on. Pushing and pulling, leaning, sliding. Just a few more moments to work with this soft grip. And when you're ready, bringing that to an end, or perhaps pausing if you'd like to continue and practice a little while longer. The next part that I want to explore is a momentary touch. So you might have already been practicing this in the exercise before, but it's when weight bearing happens. When I shift my weight and take weight into a surface. It could be a hand or a foot, or it could be another part of your body. Now what happens is there's a momentary touch before you start to pour weight into that surface. So if I was to take a step with my hand, just before I take weight into that hand, there's a moment of touch. And I suppose that has a function to check that the surface is safe, or I'm not going to put my weight on anything uncomfortable. So this is just a moment to explore the touch that comes before weight bearing. We can begin to shift and notice this touch just before we take weight. So I'm mostly using my hands and feet here, but you can also use the larger surfaces of the body. So for example, a roll. As I roll, there's a wave of touch that just goes before the weight bearing. And depending on how careful you are in your transfer of weight, that touch might be a little bit longer, or it might be very quick and short. And when you're ready, you can pause there or continue practicing and join back in when you're ready. So for this last section, you might like to stay where you are, or you could also transition to seated or perhaps standing as well. This final exploration, we're going to combine everything we've done so far. So the light touch, the soft grip, and the weight bearing where there's a momentary touch just before you take weight. We'll be working perhaps with our eyes open or closed, or you can combine the two. Just before we start, I'd like to show you a short video, and this is of a brilliant dog rolling on some grass, and it comes just as an encouragement that you can use this practice of touch to enjoy the experience of touch. It's pleasurable, and it's also really nourishing for our skin. And so this last exploration is a chance to nourish all of our surfaces with this practice of touch. So in your working position, you can just begin when you're ready, exploring these three practices, these three kinds of touch: the light touch, the soft grip, and the weight bearing with the momentary touch that comes just before transferring weight. I encourage you to really dive into the practice of touch, so we don't have to perform touch or show touch. We're just involved, engrossed in the practice of exploring rather than performing or showing touch. Really dive into the experience of touch that you make and that you receive at the same time. turn away from the screen and follow your own investigation. Remembering that video of the dog rolling on the grass, there's a pleasure in collecting touch or inviting touch as a practice.
سرو خرامان منی ای رونق بستان من چون می روی بی من مرو ای جان جان بی تن مرو از چشم من بیرون مشو ای مشعل تابان من
In the next few moments we're going to come to find an ending, and again you can pause and practice a bit longer if you like. So we'll finish there. You're welcome to go back and try some of those tasks and practices again, perhaps make some changes so that it works better for you. If you enjoyed this class, you can click the like button below. You might also like to share it with friends or colleagues. You can also subscribe to our channel, and please do write a comment or ask a question below. Thanks for joining. Take care.